I guess you could color me a little late here. Askren versus Maia is official, but I don't know that I am late in discussing. I feel like it's been a rumor for a while, but it just got done. I could be wrong on that, and I'm not really in the mood to be corrected, but let's talk a little Maia versus Askren. Couple of moving parts. Okay, first off, it's the main event. That's relevant to any kind of a breakdown or assessment you give because now it's 25 minutes. And don't forget, Demian Maia likes to play a long game. You guys will remember when Jiu-Jitsu got its start, when the Gracies came over here and started the UFC, and some of you may not know, maybe you won't remember, I'll be telling you something for the first time. When they came over here and started that was not meant to be this huge successful company that everybody could make a living from. That was a marketing apparatus so they could go open Jiu-Jitsu gyms and have students come in and sign up. They were going to prove that this worked, that in their mind it was better than the alternatives out there for martial arts gyms, and therefore you should come train with them. Okay, great. But there's a real lesson in that because the belief in jiu-jitsu sticks around to this day, but many of the elements went away. Let me give you an example. When Royce Gracie came out and made not only fighting fun and recognized, and at that time, in fairness, a spectacle, but when he made you believe in jiu-jitsu, there was no way in. And Royce would go out of his way to make sure there was nobody smaller than him. He was only going to beat bigger guys to really show you how effective this art was. Oh, and by the way, he was going to go ahead and beat multiple guys all in the same evening to show you how effective his art is. Well, I would say he hit a grand slam. I would say everything that they set out to do, they did and proved their point. I can see. But the history and the timeline is relevant because when the UFC sold, or at least when elements became to step in, by example, a round system. As soon as a round system was put in, Royce said, all right, I'm done. Now, did one have to do with the other? No, he's never said that. I was just a fan observing, and I noticed that these two time frames lined up. I do believe that I'm right. He didn't like the round system. And one of the reasons he didn't like it is jiu-jitsu was largely designed for longer competitions. It wasn't meant to come out and smoke your opponent, like, say, boxing would be, right? Boom, boom, okay, fight's over. No, it was designed for a little bit of rough and tumble. It was designed for some wear and tear and some positioning and some fatigue of your opponent. Wonderful art. None of this is, please don't interpret this as an insult to what he did, but do make sure you understand how it's designed. Relevance being, some of the better jiu-jitsu guys that do very well do better the longer the match is. They do better either right out of the gate while the opponent is dry. And that was also something Royce had in his advantage back then. You could wear anything you wanted. You could wear a boxing glove if you wanted. One guy did. You could wear wrestling shoes if you wanted. You, in Royce's case, could wear a gi if you wanted. It was very important to listen to Royce as to why he chose to wear the gi. He said, I like to wear the gi because my opponent gets sweaty. I like to absorb that sweat so he isn't slippery so I can tie him in a knot. Okay, but these are big clues that he's putting down. And if you study the sport over time, and then you want to study the most effective art, or in this case, give a breakdown of Maia versus Askren, all these clues become relevant. First off, jiu-jitsu will work very well when the guy isn't slippery, okay? Because you can get a hold of him, and he can't slide out of it. We get that. So you will see jiu-jitsu work in the first half of the very first round, or adversely to Royce's other point that he proved, is it will work very late when the opponent has slowed down a little bit, or when the opponent is convinced he has you in a great position that he's had success in for 15 or 17 minutes, and therefore you catch him sleeping on the job. I think that becomes relevant because I think that favors Maia. I think that's good for Demian Maia. Whether I'm right or not, I think that's good for Demian Maia. I also think as far as a matchup goes, I don't know if there's a better match that I want to see Ben Askren in. He is so good at grappling, he never gets his credit for it. He gets his credit for being great at wrestling. He never gets his credit for his grappling, pure grappling. And you can find this and you can see this, some going his way, some not going his way, on YouTube, where he has done private workouts with everyone from Jake Shields to Marcelo Garcia. They're all out there. But it is very interesting to go and watch and see how he does, and I do want to see him with Demian. I mean, use Dean Thomas by example. Said he wrestled with Ben Askren, and grappling with Ben Askren was like grappling with 2 men at one time. These are the comments. Tyron Woodley fought Demian Maia, trains with Ben Askren, said purely from a grappling standpoint, Ben Askren will cruise through this guy. Now, Demian Maia has a world championship, and by the way, more submissions than anybody in UFC history. To say that Ben Askren's not going to cruise through him. So I'm compelled to see it. I find it an interesting match. And so many times in this sport, we always want to talk about, we want to see two guys and bang, and we want to see knockouts. And this, well, not necessarily. If you put these two great grapplers against each other, I mean, if you guys can remember the excitement that the industry had when Jake Shields took on Demian Maia, it was very legit. People wanted to see that match. But we also knew we weren't going to have this stand and bang. Right, there's a few parts of the market, and everything is a part of it. The stand and bang is true. The pure martial arts, that's true. But then you've got a swelling to see the ground guys too. That's what we're going to get. There's no way around it. That's what we're going to get. And I like the match, and I also like that it's a main event because I want to see more minutes of it. Right, if Ben Askren can go out there and survive or dominate as Tyron Woodley says he's going to do, and he can do that for 25 straight minutes, listen. That's something we're seeing. Now, Ben Askren sucks, right? We've got that. Ben Askren's terrible. He got knocked out by Masvidal in 5 seconds. Well, guess what, guys? You're not going to hurt Ben's feelings when you come out and say this. By the way, the haters out there, Ben Askren sucks. Ben Askren's overrated. It's something Ben Askren lived with every day of his martial arts life except the last 3 months. He had 3 months prior to Masvidal where people finally go, wow, that guy's really good. Right, he gets in that tussle with Robbie Lawler. It's all over the board. He's getting thrown around. His face is shut off. He finds that he comes back. He chokes him. There's everything. And then he got to have this window where people go, okay, we're done saying. It turns out you're really good. Then he gets hit with the knee. Oh, he's back to sucks. Well, guess what? This is like Brer Rabbit. Don't throw me in the briar patch. Brer Rabbit was born and raised in the briar patch. You think this is anything unusual to Ben Askren? You guys been telling him he sucks when he won 2 world championships in 19 straight fights in 2 different weight classes on 2 different continents and 2 different organizations. He sucked for a long time. Turns out he doesn't really mind that spot. But I do think this matchup is fun, and I also think that it's something relevant. If you guys go back in the timeline of Demian Maia, after his last fight, he came out and said, I'm going to do one more. And he even called out, he had a very interesting call out. He called out Diego Sanchez, of all people. But then he went on to elaborate and said, yeah, I'd like to take on another grappler. I'm a grappler. I'd like to celebrate grappling if this is my send-off. Okay, great. Well, you didn't end up with Diego Sanchez, but you do got a grappler. I guess it's a win-win. And if this is Demian Maia's last fight, I have no inside knowledge other than I read what Demian said. There's something special in that too. I mean, not for nothing, but Demian Maia did make a very meaningful mark on this sport, and he has a very unique style. Demian Maia is always on top. People talk about his jiu-jitsu and the guard is back. Just go see Demian Maia. Demian Maia finishes people from on top. He's just weird that he pulls you down and then hits the same reversal on everybody and ends up on top. He's just got a very interesting style. And I think it should be credited, but I also think that it should be observed for what it is, which is largely a top-heavy game, but he's great at the in-between. How are you going to get on top? Well, you got to take the guy down. You got to learn a double A. You got to learn a body like Khabib. Well, no. Demian Maia found another way to get on top, which is the reversal. Very compelling. I don't feel that Maia ever gets recognized for how many guys he reverses. It's a different style of jiu-jitsu. It's fun to watch, and a lot of times I feel it really isn't fully observed, at least in the way that I observe, and I appreciate it.